This is Right on the Money with Tom Mosley, founder of Mosley Wealth Management.
Our mission at Mosley Wealth Management is to help people make sure they never run out of income the rest of their life and they pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes.
Since 1995, Tom Mosley and his team have been creating comprehensive, custom financial plans to help you preserve what you've earned and pursue what you've envisioned.
In retirement, a lot of people have built a great lump sum. We call that your lumber yard. But you need a blueprint to put that lumber yard into a plan that you can build a retirement house to live in.
What's on your mind this week, Southern California? The stock market, taxes, inflation, income, Social Security, how to ease into the life of your dreams? Let's discover conservative financial strategies starting right now. This is your Right on the Money Radio Hour with Tom Mosley.
And a very happy weekend to you. You are listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of Mosley Wealth Management based right here in Southern California. And I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. We're so glad you're joining us today. Each week, Tom and I are committed to providing you with retirement planning solutions. We've got a jam-packed show for you today. We're going to be talking about taxes, top retirement risks, retiree concerns. Oh my, so much to get into. But first up, Tom, my friend, always a joy to be with you. How are you today?
I'm doing well. Excited about the show.
Wonderful. Well, we're going to start off today's show with this question for all of you listening, and that is this. Are you looking at your taxes in the rearview mirror or through the windshield? We'll explain what we mean by that, but one of the things that really sets Tom and the team of Mosley Wealth Management apart is that they engage in strategic tax planning for the folks that they work with. And the reality is tax planning is critically important because most Americans have been conditioned to look at the taxes on their qualified accounts, all those tax-deferred accounts, IRAs, 401ks, 403bs, like they do at their income taxes after the fact. But the problem with doing so is that many people are playing a dangerous game that they have no idea they're playing. So Tom, to set up this conversation, I would love for you to first share what the difference is between tax preparation, which I'm sure our listeners are very familiar with, versus strategic tax planning, which is what you do for your clients.
Yeah, we're not CPAs and we don't do 1040s and file with the government tax planning. That's tax preparation. And when my CPA calls me, he's a friend of mine, and he's a good friend of mine. We used to serve on a ministry team together at a church we attended in Yorba Linda together. And he's since moved to Tennessee, and he's still my CPA because he can do that, he can do it in a virtual, remotely,
Yeah.
right? And I was trying to say virtual, but it was remote is a better way. But he's still a good friend of mine, but he still only calls me about 2 times a year. He calls me in February, Tom, get your stuff in.
Right.
And then he calls me in March because I file business and we have to do that March 15th. Tom, I got your stuff ready. And it's all looking backwards. He's preparing my tax, the 1040s, to turn into the government for after the fact for what I paid last year. Tax planning. Tax planning is looking forward and saying not how much tax do I have to pay and can I get by with paying for last year, but how much tax can I pay now so that over a long period of time, I can pay less overall tax on the money that's still got to be taxed in my 401k and my IRA. And I call it looking out the windshield versus looking in the rearview mirror. My tax guy is always looking back. I need somebody and I need some help. And when I first got started in this industry, on June the 8th of 1995, the people asked me who I wanted to work with. And I told them I wanted to work with people retired to make sure they never run out of sufficient income. Because I had been in the ministry and I had been in charge of benevolence. And I had had people stand before me who were trying to decide to buy food or medicine and they needed some money.
Yeah.
Okay. And I wanted to help people avoid that. And I quickly realized that it wasn't just running out of sufficient income that was the issue, but the biggest thing that was taking money away from people was their taxes and what they were having to pay in taxes. So we began to train with 𝗏𝗏, who's America's authority on taxation of IRAs and 401ks. He's a financial planner, CPA. I'm proud to say I'm a master elite advisor with 𝗏𝗏 now. And I'm glad to say that we work with people to help them pay as little as they're legally required to pay in taxes. That's tax planning. Okay. So that's the difference in tax preparations, looking back on what you have to pay for last year. Tax planning is looking forward and saying, of all the tax I'm going to encounter in the rest of my years, how much tax am I going to have to pay? And how can I pay as little as I'm legally required to pay?
You know, as you were talking, Tom, it reminded me of another analogy. I've heard it said that tax preparation, it's almost like you're an archaeologist because you're looking at the past, right? But what you're doing for folks is you are an architect. You're actually building tax plans for people's futures to help them not pay any more to the IRS than they are legally required to pay. That's a huge difference. And I know that there's an incredible resource that we've shared with listeners before. We want to make sure that you are aware of this. It's completely free for you to use. It's your very own retirement tax bill calculator. I'm going to give you the site, and then Tom, I'll let you walk folks through what they're going to do with it. But that site you want to go to and check out is 𝗧MyTaxBill.com. That's EASE mytaxbill.com. So Tom, what are folks going to see when they visit this site?
Okay, when you get on 𝗧MyTaxBill.com, you're going to get a report back directly to you. So you're going to put your name in there. You're going to put your age in there. You're going to put the total amount of money you have in your 401ks, your IRAs, all of those things, not your Roths, because that's already been taxed. All of the things that you've got that have never been taxed, your 457s, your 401A, and your 403Bs, and all of those things. You're going to put that total non-taxed dollars in there. You're going to put your tax bracket in there, like what's your marginal tax bracket, and about how much you earn on your investments every single year. Now, once you put that in there, it's going to generate for you a report as to how, if you pay that out according to the government's way, how much tax you're going to have to pay in your lifetime. And you're going to be astounded. Make sure you read that when you're sitting down.
Right.
Because it is going to be unbelievable. Now, what is that going to allow you to do? Well, let's go back to the archaeologist and the architect illustration that you brought up, the analogy you brought up. The archaeologist, I've been to Israel, and we were at this archaeological site, it's hard to say, up by the Sea of Galilee, and they were digging out and they were brushing off things, and they had a table, and they were putting all kind of different things on a table as they were unearthing these things. Now, what they're going to do is they're going to take those, and you can go into a different room of that museum, and you could see that they had put some of those things together and said, this is what it looks like. This is what we found, and we've built out the rest of this animal. We've built out the rest of this boat as to what it would have looked like. So they take a few pieces, like your tax guy does, and puts it together into a plan to say, this is what it looks like from the past. That's called your 1040. All right. Now, an architect, on the other hand, says, what's your vision? What do you want to see in the future? What do you want to build in your house? And you say, well, I'd like a kitchen like this, a living area like this, a backyard like this, those kind of things. And that architect is going to build the future, a vision of what you're going to look at in the future. That's tax planning. Okay, looking for the future and building it the way you want. Preparation is more like that archaeologist that looks at the past and said, this is it. This is what it looked like. This is what you're going to have to pay. Planning says this is how we can do this and structure this so that you can pay less in taxes. Let me say that again. If that doesn't wake you up, on a Saturday or a Sunday morning. Nothing will. So that you can pay less in overall taxes. That's what strategic tax planning will do for you.
And we know that you're probably wondering, how can I do that for myself? Well, again, we invite you to visit 𝗧MyTaxBill.com. As Tom said, you'll put in some very basic information. It's completely complimentary for you to use. Once you click submit, you're going to instantly see side by side the difference between the government's tax plan for you if you do nothing versus how much less you could pay in taxes if you engage in some of this strategic tax planning that Tom is talking about. And then you're also going to receive that 4-page detailed report with your numbers. And no doubt, Tom, once folks see that report, they're definitely going to want to call and say, help me figure out how I could make this my reality versus what the government's tax plan is for me if I do nothing.
You know, I recently had a physical, and in that physical, they did blood work.
Mm-hmm.
And all of a sudden, I'm with Blue Shield. I'll just tell you where my insurance is with. And with Blue Shield, about 3 days later, all of the numbers from my blood work showed up.
Mm-hmm.
Now, it was like 4 pages, and I read through it. And the more I read, not confused, but the more I realized I really didn't know what I was looking at. I mean, I could see if it was within the margins or not.
Sure.
And I could maybe look it up. But the nice thing was, about 2 days after I got that on my Blue Shield, my doctor called me. And my doctor said, do you have a few minutes? I'd like to walk you through some of the things that stick out here and some things we need to address. Bingo. I immediately not just was looking at a big page of numbers, but I was looking at somebody and listening to somebody who was telling me, 90% of that is irrelevant on my blood work. All of it's relevant when it comes to your tax bill, but 90% of it was irrelevant. But the most major things on there were the 10% of those things that I needed to address, or the things that I needed to do, or the things that we needed to work on. And that's what calling us and coming in with us, once you get that 𝗧MyTaxBill, it'll show you the magnitude of the problem. But coming in and sitting down with us will allow us to start building a retirement blueprint and a tax plan for you that will allow you to address your issues. Your specific issue is going to be different than your neighbors. Different. There's 2 of you in the car and you're both going to do 𝗧MyTaxBill.com. You're going to get 2 different reports, and you're probably going to get 2 different things you need to do. That's where you need to come in and sit down with one of our all-star advisors, and that's where we can start helping.
Yes. And if you are married and filing jointly, you can actually, on the 𝗧MyTaxBill.com, you can actually click the button that says household. You can put in both members of your household in there to see what the magnitude of the problem would be for you collectively. But again, we encourage you to reach out, connect with 𝗧MyTaxBill.com, get your complimentary report, and then set up a time to schedule your meeting with one of the advisors from Mosley Wealth Management to get your complimentary retirement blueprint. And they're going to be able to walk you through that report and help you figure out how you can potentially pay less to the IRS. That number to call is 888-930-5609. We'll be back with more on today's show right after this.
Which will you spend more money on in retirement, food or healthcare? Do you take your investments out of the stock market now that you're retired? How do you know if you've saved enough to stay retired? Will your Social Security check be reduced in the future? How do you produce income from your nest egg to fight costs like taxes and inflation? At Mosley Wealth Management, Tom Mosley and the team take the guessing out of retirement planning by devising a written plan that accounts for all of your concerns. Find out the answers to your retirement questions by calling Tom Mosley of Mosley Wealth Management, 888-930-5609.
Call the Mosley Wealth Management team at 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609. Welcome back, Southern California. You're listening to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. If you're just joining us, we just talked a lot about taxes. Again, we encourage you to utilize this free resource that the team of Mosley Wealth Management has for you. We invite you to visit 𝗧MyTaxBill.com. Again, that's mytaxbill.com. And we know that once you see those numbers for yourself and you see the difference between the potential tax bill you could have in retirement versus how much less you could pay if you engage in strategic tax planning, you're definitely going to want to connect with the team of Mosley Wealth Management. We're going to be talking next about some top retirement risks that today's modern retiree is facing. But before we do, Tom, you were just sharing with me during the break a really fun story about what happened at one of your events this week. And I'd love for you to share it with our listeners as well.
Hey, so many people, this lady came up and she said, I've been listening to you for 2 years. I should have called you a year ago. And I'm just now coming to a Social Security workshop. And she said, I'm going to come in and see one of the advisors, So if you're out there, and then she was really nice. She said, I have the voice over the radio, but she said, can I take a picture with you? So I said, sure.
Aww.
So we took a little bit, not used to the fame and glory, you know what I mean? So, but anyway, we took the picture, and she said, I should have come in a year ago. And I think of so many of you out there, and you've been listening for a long time, and you say, I should get around to it. I should just do it. Well, you probably intended to do that sometime in 2024, and now we're well into 2025. Why don't you just do it? Why don't you just call in and get an appointment with one of our advisors? We can't help you if we don't know you.
Right.
And we can't help you until you come into an event or until you call us. So come in. We'll take a picture of you if we need to, if you want.
Meaning if you want to get a selfie with Tom, he's available, right?
That's right. That's right.
Aww.
But more importantly than you taking a picture with me is we want to get you a clear picture of what your retirement is going to look like financially. We want to build you a retirement blueprint so that you can, in that retirement blueprint, you can address the tax issue we talked about and the long-term tax issue we talked about in the first segment, and the things we're going to talk about in this segment that are risk, and everything we talk about on this show we'll address and we'll build into your retirement blueprint. But the one thing we can't do for you is pick up the phone and call in and get an appointment. So I have to leave that up to you. And now you're never going to do it any sooner. Why not do it right now?
Yes. And, I've never met someone who regretted starting sooner. I've known plenty of people who regret not starting sooner in this process. So don't let that be you. Today can be the day. All you need to do is pick up the phone and call 888-930-5609. Well, we talked about taxes in the first segment. Obviously, tax risk is at the top of a lot of retirees and people's minds, even those who are not in retirement yet, but approaching it. But there are so many different additional risks that retirees are currently facing. But the good news is if you get in front of those risks, as we've said, the sooner you start, the easier it can be, and properly plan for them, it can make a huge difference to the success of your retirement. So, Tom, I want to go through some of these. I know first off, we have longevity risk. We are living longer than we ever have before. And I think of the article that came out last year about Elizabeth Francis, the sweet woman in Houston, Texas, who turned 115. And sadly, she did pass away in October of 2024. But the best part to me about that story, here she was 115 years old, and she was living with her 95-year-old daughter. I mean, what a beautiful story of longevity. But with that longevity comes the fear of running out of money, right?
Exactly. All of the other risks are compounded by longevity. Now, I'm not advocating, doctor-assisted suicide. That's not what I'm here to advocate, that you don't live a long time, that you end your own life. But I am saying that think about the market risk. What is the market risk? The market risk is that the market's going to have a 50% downturn like it's done twice since the year 2000. Well, the longer you live, the more your financial investments are subject to a market downturn of 50%, and not just one, but multiple downturns of 20, 30, 40, 50%. So longevity, living 30 or 40 years, you're probably going to go through, if we have average recessions, which, by the way, in the last 15 or 20 years, we have not had, but that doesn't mean we won't have them potentially in the future. Inflation, risk, okay?
Mhm.
That does not mean, since we've only had one little flare up of inflation in the last 40 years, we might not have more in the future, and we might not be out of the inflation risk right now. Well, the longer you live, the more market risk you're going to run into, the more recession risk you're going to run into, the more inflation risk you're going to run into. The longer you live, the more potential for healthcare issues
Yep.
that are going to cost you money. So I'm not trying to get you down on living a long time, but the more downturns, the more withdrawals, the more health issues you've got, the longer you live, the more problems you're going to have. I mean, it's not like you reach 80 and bingo, you're in
Mhm.
Shangri-La. Everything's
Mhm.
going to be great and there's going to be no more problems. No, the reality is sometimes the longer you live, the more problems you have and the more compounded that you have. Kristen, that's one of the reasons that we try to address the paycheck for life,
Mm.
the long-term paycheck. If you can set your retirement plan up rather than just put it all in a lumberyard, put it all in an investment account and hope that it lasts through all of these risks and all of these downturns and all of the withdrawals and all of the emergencies and all of those things that happen, hope that it lasts through all of those. If that's your plan, you might be in trouble with longevity. But
Mhm.
if you've set up a plan where you've guaranteed for life that you're going to get a steady stream of constant income for life, then you're never going to have to worry about that going away. That begins to build in an element of peace, of contentment, of security to you to know that no matter what happens, I'm going to have that income flow coming in and I'm never going to run out of income the rest of my life. So longevity, it can be a great thing, but it can domino into healthcare costs. It can domino into long-term care, which is highly costly. I just saw a report recently that the average long-term care cost in Southern California was $12,500 a month. I know
Wow.
people who are paying more for their parents. I know
Mhm.
people who are paying less for their parents. So maybe 12,500 is a pretty good average. So the longer you live, it's great. But the longer you live, the more attacks your pile of money is going to have. So you better build some stability in there that's going to guarantee you a flow of income.
Yes. And I mean, it's no wonder that folks are scared of running out of money. I think, too, Tom, in the absence of having that plan, here's the problem. Because we don't know how long we're going to live, a lot of folks might then be scared to go ahead and spend money during their physical, able bodied years to do the things that they want to do because they know they could easily be living another 30, maybe even 40 more years beyond retirement. And they're scared it's going to run out. But that's the peace of mind that you building these plans can do for folks is when it's on paper, written down, you know that your paycheck is going to be covered for the rest of your life. That brings so much peace of mind and freedom to allow folks to go ahead and spend the money to do the things they want to do while they can still do them. And I think that's the biggest tragedy that I see when folks don't have a plan and they're just hoping they have enough and they're not going to outlive it. That's one of the biggest consequences of not having a plan is not spending that money and enjoying your life when you're able to.
I had a couple came in, this was about 6 months ago, but hearing you say what you just said just really brought them to mind. I never give anybody's name out, but this couple had about 1.3 million dollars in savings for retirement, and they had
Mhm.
been working with a big box firm, one of the investment companies that just focuses on investment. They were
Mhm.
in their mid 60s and they had been retired for about 6 months,
Okay.
and they came to me and I said, what's your major reason for coming? They said, well, we're wanting a second opinion. When they want a second opinion, I always ask, what do you like or dislike about your current advisor? And they told me, they said, well, our current advisor has told us two things. Don't worry, you're okay. But they haven't given us any substance as to why we're okay. So
Mm.
we don't know if we're really okay. And
Mhm.
the second thing is, the one thing we wanted to do, we found a $75,000 used motorhome that was really a jewel, and we wanted to buy it. And even though we've got over $1 million, our investment advisor said, well, I want to caution you that if you do buy that $75,000 motorhome in your 60s, you might run out of money in your 80s.
Oh, wow.
Okay. And they couldn't give them any assurance. So here's what we did. I'll just break it down really quickly. We took 400,000 of their 1.2, 1.3 million, and we put that in an income annuity.
Mm-hmm.
And that income annuity is with their 2 Social Securities. That income annuity is going to pay them out enough income that they're going to have sufficient income for the rest of their lives.
Wow.
The 2 Social Securities, the income annuity, that's their paycheck we're talking about.
Mm-hmm.
What does that leave? That leaves I remember now, it was $877,000 it left in the paycheck.
Mm-hmm.
They took $75,000 of the paycheck, and the guy still had the motorhome. He hadn't sold it yet because he really wasn't trying to sell it. He was just offering it to them.
Mm-hmm.
They bought that $75,000 motorhome, and they went on a 3-month tour of America in their middle 60s, knowing that they had sufficient income the rest of their life, and they had $800,000 left in their paycheck to go play with and enjoy in their 60s, 70s, and 80s, as long as they were in the go-go years. That's what a plan will do for you.
Yes. Oh, what a beautiful story. And I'm so glad they came to you for that second opinion. So maybe that's you. Maybe you have been working with another advisor. Have they just been telling you you're going to be okay? Are you lacking the substance of knowing, the surety of knowing that you're not going to outlive your money? If so, the team of 𝗧𝗠 Wealth Management would love to be able to provide that second opinion for you. And you can't get a second opinion from the same person who gave you the first. So we invite you to pick up the phone and call 888-930-5609 to schedule your time to come in and receive your very own complimentary retirement blueprint. 888-930-5609. We'll be back with more right after this.
Is having $1 million enough to retire? For years, many have considered this to be the goal amount to have for retirement savings, $1 million. But that's the $1 million question. Is that enough for today's modern retiree? Are you sure you've saved enough for a 25 or 30-year retirement? Are you concerned about covering large expenses, including taxes and long-term care? If so, you're not alone. But there is a solution. With a comprehensive financial plan, you can take control of your finances to help you achieve your long-term goals. At 𝗧𝗠 Wealth Management, let us help you work towards peace of mind by implementing a complete retirement strategy. Call Tom Mosley and the team of 𝗧𝗠 Wealth Management right away to receive your complimentary, comprehensive written financial plan. 888-930-5609. That's 888-930-5609.
Call 𝗧𝗠 Wealth Management for your own complimentary retirement blueprint and written financial plan. 888-930-5609. Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom Mosley. He is the founder and president of 𝗧𝗠 Wealth Management based right here in Southern California, and I'm your host, Kristen Oakley. We're so glad you're here with us. If you're just tuning in, we've talked a lot about taxes in the first segment. We talked a lot about the different top retirement risks that today's modern retiree is facing. And now we want to address some more retiree concerns. But before we dive into those, Tom, I am so excited that you're going to be doing so many events throughout 2025. I know folks love coming to your live events. They love getting to meet you and the team in person and really learn more beneficial information. Again, these events are completely complimentary. If you want to find out the list of events that are upcoming near you, we invite you to visit the website 𝗧𝗠wealthmanagement.com. That's MOSLEY wealthmanagement.com. I would love for you to share a little bit about the different events that you have coming up and specifically why you are doing over 100 Social Security events in 2025 alone.
Well, we're going to have between 12 and 15 events every month this year. And I don't teach them all. Travis teaches some. Travis Hawley, our senior advisor, teaches some of those events. We've got Jeff Schuler is going to be teaching some of those events, and Roberto Leon is going to be teaching some of those events, all qualified. Social Security. Why Social Security? Why do all of us take the National Social Security Advisors Certification course? Because when we talk about social, unlike a lot of advisors we follow, and we follow up with on the radio even, and we follow up with when they've tried to work with you on social and given you wrong advice, we want to make sure when we give you Social Security advice, it's the right advice. So we teach Social Security workshops because if the main thing you need is guaranteed income for life, and 41% of the average American's income in 2023 came from Social Security, we better be good on Social Security.
Mm-hmm.
And we better know that, and you better be up to date. And here's the thing I point out in every single Social Security workshop. Whoever you are, your Social Security options are different than anyone else's Social Security options because of what else do you have? What do you have in your 401k and IRA? What are your other options as opposed to just going and turning on Social Security early or later? See, you're different than anybody else's. And this is where I encourage people, Kristen, not to listen to Bob at the water cooler
Mm-hmm.
or Sally in the break room. They're giving you, maybe if it's professional advice they've received, they're giving you the absolute best advice for them.
Mm-hmm.
But it could be the absolute wrong advice for you. So we encourage you. It's maybe an hour and 10 minutes at the absolute max. Come to one of the locations near you. It's free. That means complimentary. What's the other way to say free? I don't know. You know what I'm saying?
Cost you nothing.
Cost you nothing. And we will sit down with you and you'll walk out of there with a good, firm understanding of the basics of Social Security. Now, we can't answer individual personal questions because we do those in libraries and community centers, and they ask us to make sure that it's strictly educational and not a sales presentation. So we don't talk to you about your personal information, but we give everybody an opportunity, just like on the show here, to set up an appointment and come in and to get absolute specific advice, and we'll build you a retirement blueprint. And part of that is the Social Security analysis for you. So that's why we do the events. We also do tax events, especially during this tax season. We also do a 3-hour retirement master class that sort of puts Social Security and investments and taxes and healthcare and inflation and yeah, you got it. All of those kind of things. It puts all of those major components of a retirement plan together. But to come in and get an appointment, to come to any of those events, you've got to take action. And you've got to take action by going to the website and registering or calling in and telling people you want an appointment.
Yes. So just a reminder, we do encourage you to register for these events. Again, they're completely free to you, but that way the team knows how many people to expect, has enough seats and materials ready, and you can find the list of events and register online by visiting mosleywealthmanagement.com. That's MOSLEY wealthmanagement.com. All right, Tom, we're talking today about some retiree concerns. We've been having a really great conversation about tax planning for retirement and some of the serious concerns, mainly longevity, that we know pre-retirees and retirees are facing. There was a modern retirement study that was conducted back in 2021 by the American Advisors Group. And the data from that study was released in 2023, and it stated that inflation and the cost of living have left many older Americans worried or upset about their post-career finances. It said that nearly 40% of today's seniors believe their generation had a harder time achieving retirement than their parents did. And nearly 1/3 of older Americans believe they will outlive their money. That's really heartbreaking to read because you and I both know that when you have a solid plan in place, a lot of times that worry can be mitigated and maybe even completely eliminated. And I know you see this day in and day out when you work with folks.
Let's take the gloves off. I think people are so missing pensions
Mm,
Okay. What is a pension? A pension is an annuity that's through an insurance company that a company used to provide for people. You say, I used to provide? Yeah. In the 70s, 63% of all adults were covered by a pension. It might not have been theirs, they might not have been working, but their spouse covered them with their pension.
right.
63% of the adults could retire knowing that they had a guaranteed payment, many times indexed for inflation, some or somewhat, for the rest of their life as long as they live. Plus, they had Social Security. So the income issue that we've talked about overcame the longevity risk that we talked about in the second segment. Okay.
Yep.
Because you knew you were going to have good, solid income for the rest of their life. Instead of 63% in the 70s, now only 16. 1 out of 6% of all the people in America are covered by a pension. That pension that supplements with Social Security so that people have income for the rest of their life. Now, for those of you who have been incorrectly or sadly turned off toward the value of a fixed indexed annuity. I don't like variable annuities because they're variable. They're in the market. It's an investment in the market that would pay you an annuity. But why put it in the market? Why not put it in a fixed indexed annuity that's never going to go backwards? You get part of the market gain, but never any of the market loss.
Yep.
Okay. And your income is going to be established once you put the right amount. I talked earlier about this couple with $1.2, $1.3 million. It only took, yes, it only took $400,000 going into an annuity to supplement their Social Security so they could go to bed every night knowing they had all the income they needed for the rest of their life. Bingo.
Yeah.
Solved. All right. Now let's go back to this 40% of the seniors believe they're in a harder time. Why? They believe they're in a harder time because they don't have the pensions.
Yep.
And 1/3 of the older Americans believe they're going to run out of money. Take the gloves off. It's because they don't have that pension/annuity that their parents had, that their grandparents have. So many times I hear people, well, I hate annuities. Why do you hate annuities? Well, I don't know. Somebody sold me one when I was 30 and it wasn't the right thing. Right. You don't need income. That's what an annuity's for. You don't need income when you're in your 30s. You need a job.
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
But when you're in your 65, 70, 75-year ages and you don't have income anymore, you need income. And the way to get that guaranteed for life is through a fixed indexed annuity with part of your assets for retirement. Addressing the paycheck, but yet leaving that paycheck there for you to go and have fun. So there's no cookie cutter approach to this, okay? Because let's take the people who came into my office about 2 weeks ago. He had a large pension and she had a large Social Security. Well, now with the Fairness Act, she's going to continue to get that Social Security, and he chose his pension with a 100% payout paying out to her. He's not retired yet, but that's what he's going to do. So their income is fixed for the rest of their life with a little bit of a boost every year, 2% boost every year. So they're not going to need any more money allocated toward income. They don't need an annuity.
Right.
But take that couple that had that gap and they were concerned, and their advisor was telling them, we're not sure here. We're careful here. You're going to run out of money maybe in your 80s. You can't spend that money in your 60s because you might run out in your 80s. Go spend the money in your 60s out of your paycheck because you put enough into your paycheck to address it for the rest of your life. That's the difference in an investment company that you might be working with in a big box firm and a financial retirement planner that's going to build you a retirement blueprint.
Yes.
In that blueprint, we're going to address at the base your income. Guaranteed income for life. Adjusted for inflation. That's number 2. Number 3, we're going to look at your investments. You're probably not taking as much risk in your 70s as you were when you were in your 40s. Number 4, we're going to look at your taxes. 𝗧MyTaxBill.com will help you see your taxes, okay? Number 5, we're going to look at your health care, which can be one of your biggest costs. And number 6, we're going to look at your legacy. We're going to build that plan for you if you call in.
And that number to call to claim your opportunity to come in and receive your complimentary retirement blueprint, 888-930-5609. Again, that's 888-930-5609. When we come back, we're going to be diving into some listener questions. We appreciate all of you who have emailed your questions in to Tom. We're going to tackle some of those right after this.
Social Security is easy, right? The question is, should I take it now or later? Well, there are dozens and dozens of ways to take Social Security if you're single, and even more if you're married. This one-time decision can also affect how much you pay in taxes, how much you receive in lifetime payouts for you and possibly your spouse. You could increase your nest egg by tens of thousands of dollars just by being informed. Build your Social Security benefits into a retirement income plan with all of your assets. Get your own tailored, no-cost Social Security income strategy with Tom 𝗠ശി𝗰𝗶 of 𝗦𝗠ശി𝗰𝗶 Wealth Management. 888-930-5609.
Call Tom 𝗠ശി𝗰𝗶 and the team at 𝗦𝗠ശി𝗶 Wealth Management for your complimentary retirement blueprint. 888-930-5609. Welcome back to Right on the Money with Tom 𝗠ശി𝗰𝗶. I'm your host, Kristen Oakley, and it's that time of the week where we are going to be answering some of our listener questions. We appreciate those of you who have emailed questions in, and just for your knowledge, we always change names to protect your privacy. But if you have a question that you would like Tom to answer on the air in a future show, we invite you to email your question in, and you can do so at info@𝗠శi𝗰𝗋�wealthmanagement.com. Again, that's info@𝗠శi𝗋�wealthmanagement.com. Our first question today comes from William in Santa Clarita. William says, I'm 63 years old and own my own company. I currently have $400,000 in my SEP IRA. I'd like to retire in 2 years. What steps should I be taking now to make sure I'm getting the most out of my SEP and not get killed by taxes?
Hold on here, William. We got to talk about your company. And for those of you who are out there who own a company, I can't believe how many people come in and they haven't thought about the value of their company and what's going to happen to their company. Now, regardless, even if this is just a one-person show, okay, William, if you're running that company, it's your own, you likely have some value in that company. It may be your customer base. It may be the building that you might own along with it. I'm working with a couple right now, and they have a company and they own 4 of the warehouses that they have in that company. So there's value there. And there needs to be at least some thought as to an exit strategy for that company. Is there somebody there that can buy that company? Maybe you sell it out to a competitor. Maybe you sell it out to somebody, to a vendor that you've worked with that's in the line of products that your company produces or works with. Maybe you sell it to an employee, as we've said. Maybe there's one of your children that you could develop to run that company and maybe pay you a residual and give you a payout over your retirement years from that company. That's the way I'm set up here if I ever decide to retire at 𝗦𝗠ശi𝗰𝗶 Wealth Management. But I know I'm going to get an income from this company for life because I have my son who's already stepping in and running some big portions of this company. So the biggest retirement value you may have, William, is in your own company. Now, if you're sitting out there and you've got a business and some of you woke up in the last 2 minutes while I've been talking and you said, wow, I could maybe sell my business. It's usually not the thing you can do in a day. And you
Mhm.
can't do it in 2 months or 3 months. But if you're 2 years away from retirement, like you are, William, you need to start saying, what can I earn or get out of my company? Is there an exit strategy in place so that all this work that I put in, does it just die when you retire? Does it go away when you go away? Or does it continue either in the hands of somebody else or somebody that you turn it over to, that you've sold it to, or you've allowed to run the thing in your stead? A lot of issues there. One of the things that I can talk you through, we can talk you through as advisors, is that exit strategy, because we work with a lot of people in that way. Now, okay, now let's get to the SEP.
Okay.
All right, you're 63 years old, William, and I would need to know, just like we do when we start to build a retirement blueprint, what your needs are going to be when you get out of that company in 2 years. Are you selling it so that you do get a residual payout? And could you structure that when you're 65 so that that pays you out over the next 5 years, 10 years, 7 years? I've seen payouts over those lengths of time. Okay, so if so, how much money am I going to need out of that SEP IRA when I no longer have full income or earnings coming from the business, from the company? Okay,
Mhm.
because see, always what we've got to do, in case you haven't figured it out through this show, is we've got to take out what you're making from social, what you're making from other streams of income. Do you have any rental property? Do you have any other things that are paying you? Are you renting out a back room in your house? Some people are doing that. Some people have what's called a mother-in-law's cottage, or, that additional unit in the back of their house in Southern California they've built, and they have income. So of that income, what do you have coming in? What do you need? Is there a gap? If there's a gap, we're going to have to take some of that SEP and address that income gap. Okay.
Mhm.
But with the rest of it, what we're going to try to do over a period of time, if we're working with you, is do some tax harvesting. Okay. Tax harvesting would mean, yes, and I'm not drunk, inebriated, or any of those things. It's early in the morning, but we're going to probably try to ask you to pay a little bit more tax each year and do some Roth conversions to get that SEP over into a Roth IRA, where in the SEP, the word is forever. Every penny that ever comes out of that any year forever is going to be taxed. But in the Roth IRA, once you pay the tax and get it over there, never will you pay tax on anything coming out of that Roth IRA. I like never taxed versus forever taxed a
Oh,
lot more.
yes. Yep.
So that's what we're going to do to make sure, to a direct answer to your question, to get the most out of your SEP or your IRA. Or if you're sitting out there and you're saying, well, I'm not like William, I don't have a SEP, but I've got a 401k. We're going to do the same thing. We're going to try to convert as much as we can over into the Roth. And we've got a little bit of a deadline, because by 73, you're going to have to start taking required minimum distributions, and those can't go into the Roth. So we've got a little bit of it. We can still take more, but we want to make sure and take advantage of everything we can to convert up until that required minimum distribution age. So yes, William, we can work with you, but the bigger thing is, what are you going to do with that company? What
Mhm.
happens to it? The value of it? What's your exit strategy? And then from the SEP, what's your transition strategy for that over into a Roth where you're never taxed again, so we can accomplish your goal of not getting killed by taxes?
Yeah. Tom, thank you for that very well-rounded, in-depth answer. And it just, again, it highlights how much goes into this. We know that often the answer with financial questions is it depends, and finance is very personal. There's so much that goes into that. So William, thank you for that question. And we're excited for you to get connected with the team of Moseley Wealth Management to get the help that you need, not just for yourself, but for this business question as well. Well, next up on our list, we have Mark from Ramona. Mark says, I have an investment portfolio that's worth $1 million. I don't think that will be enough to retire. I have a middle of the road risk tolerance and was thinking about the right investing strategy for the future might be to go all in on stocks as they'd give me the greatest yield. Would buying stock now be a good idea?
Yeah, Mark, I got to ask you some questions. How old are you? Which is going to make the difference in how much time do you have?
Hmm.
If I'm going to heavily invest in stock and I want the money next year, I don't know. Even as positive as things have started out in 2025, who can bet on the stock market over 1 year? But if you've got 5 years or 10 years, yeah, maybe. I mean, that stock, a good heavy stock investment might be good. If you're going to retire in 5 years, maybe not so head over heels. You say you've got a middle of the road risk tolerance. So we've got to honor that. One of the things we're going to do, if you came in and talked to us, Ramona, you'd probably come into our Scripps Ranch office right off the 15 freeway at the Carroll Canyon exit, and you'd come in and probably talk to Travis or Charlie or some of the people down there, and they're going to give you a risk analysis.
Hmm.
And Mark, that risk analysis is going to get you out of the middle of the road level, and it's going to give you a score of 0 to 100. And then we're going to know what kind of risk level is going to allow you to sleep at night on that $1 million. Another huge question, not only what is your age, but another huge question is, where is that $1 million? Is that in an IRA or a 401k that's not been taxed? That way, if we're working with it, we can move it pretty freely without having any taxable event, because it's all within that shell of that IRA or 401k, and you don't want to get hit with a big tax right now. But if that's in an after-tax account, I recently had couples that came in and their parents had given them a chunk of Apple stock 3 years ago, and it had doubled. So they had all kind of capital gains tax built into that. It was an after-tax account. It wasn't in an IRA and a 401k. And so moving that and placing that and buying new stock in that could cause a lot of taxable issues, because to buy new stock, you got to sell the old stock. And if you've got capital gains in that $1 million that you're going to have to pay, you're probably not going to be happy paying maybe $100,000 and $200,000 worth of capital gain stock. So we got to know where it's coming from before we can really give you any kind of advice. I think on these questions, rather than giving you an answer, we need to give you the pitfalls that you could do if you just arbitrarily moved it without professional help or thinking through it.
Yep.
So would buying stock now be a good idea if you've got time? Because I think stock is always a solid investment given time.
If you have that long time horizon, yeah.
The long time horizon. But if it's a short time, maybe not. See, Mark, come in and talk to us, because these are questions and a lot more that we're going to ask you. That's why a lot of people call us, Kristen, and you know this, they call us and they say, send me a blueprint.
Right.
Well, we can't send you one till we know where you are and what you've got and what you have and where it is, because we could send you a blueprint. It could be entirely wrong for you because it's a great blueprint for somebody else, but not for you. You've got to come in, gather your stuff, take the hour and a half it takes to come in and meet with us, meet with one of our all-star advisors. All of us are licensed fiduciaries. We don't act like one, we are one, okay? And come in and meet with us. We'll build you a retirement blueprint.
The advisor you meet with is going to start with a blank sheet of paper and build that complimentary retirement blueprint customized for you and your situation. So this is no cookie cutter approach. And again, there's no substitute for sitting down in the financial planning environment, getting your questions answered, and having this blueprint built for you. That number to call to get your appointment on the books is 888-930-5609. Hey, thanks so much for joining us this weekend. We appreciate you being here. Be safe, be happy, be blessed, and we look forward to being back with you next week here on Right on the Money with Tom Mosley.
Investment advisory services offered by duly registered individuals through Mosley Wealth Management Incorporated. Mosley Wealth Management and Mosley Insurance and Financial Services are affiliated companies by common ownership license number OB61811. Investing involves risk, including the potential loss of principal. Any references to protection, safety, or lifetime income generally refers to fixed insurance products, never securities or investments. Insurance guarantees are backed by the financial strength, claims paying ability of the issuing carrier. This content is intended for for informational and educational purposes only. It is not intended to be used as the sole basis for financial decisions, nor should it be construed as advice designed to meet the needs of an individual situation. All hypothetical examples are provided for illustrative purposes only. They do not represent real-life scenarios. Mosley Insurance and Financial Services, nor its agents or representatives, may give tax or legal advice. Individuals should consult with a qualified professional for guidance before making any investment decisions. Our firm is not affiliated with or endorsed by the U.S. government or any governmental agency. Some of the information provided may be from one or more third parties, which we believe to be reliable sources, but accuracy and completeness cannot be guaranteed by Mosley Insurance and Financial Services.